All right, everybody, we got a very special guest today. We have Breanne Watson. She's currently the second in command in the athletic department at Simon Fraser University. She spent time at Simon. She spent time at UBC. She's got one of the higher, the bigger resumes for athletes, probably in the history of our province. And we brought her out because I think she's a fantastic opportunity for you guys to see another person that's played at an extraordinarily high level and then has taken that high level of athletics and translated it into a high level job and position in our community in the Vancouver community. So thank you very much for joining us, Bree.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Gladly. So we've got, just so you know, we've got 20 or so kids from our U17 program, and then we've got a few kids from our younger teams as well. Tell us a little bit about how you got started with playing basketball, and I know at a young age you played quite a few different sports. So kind of give us a little breakdown of what sport was like for you, and let's go like elementary school. Like let's go all the way back. When did it start? How did you get going? Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, my dad was a kind of a big time basketball player. He was a two-time MVP of the AAA boys basketball. So back in the day, and kind of grew up going to the gym with my dad when he was playing in men's leagues and whatnot. And so from an early age, my brother and I were just always in the gymnasium, always playing basketball. Also involved in a ton of other sports early on, elementary school, playing softball, soccer, track and field, you name it. Just kind of parents kept us active. And so that's sort of where it all began.
Absolutely. And then you go to McMath in high school. Did you stay there the whole time?
Yeah, I was at McMath from 8 to 12. So I was actually the first class to go through McMath. My grade 8 year was the first year the school had opened. So we were a really good volleyball school. We weren't that great at basketball, but obviously now McMath has a bit of a legacy in girls basketball. So high school career at McMath. At that time, we were AA. So we played provincials up in Kamloops before all the tournaments were amalgamated, and weren't super strong in basketball, but we made it there. So that was kind of the biggest thing.
Yeah, I actually remember watching your team play. Ironically, I feel we're both pretty young, I think, so we're doing okay. But so now let me ask you this question. Tell us about your high school experience playing basketball and volleyball. We hear a lot of coaches from other sports tell us that you got to focus on one, can't be playing multiples. Just looking at your resume, clearly that wasn't the way that you felt it went. So kind of give us a little breakdown. You did high level track and field in high school. You did high level volleyball in high school. You did high level basketball in high school. How did that kind of coexist?
Yeah, I'm a big multi-sport advocate. I know it's kind of changed over the years, but in high school, I was a track athlete. So I was a high jumper. I won the BC Provincials 2 years in a row in high jump, individual sport. And I also played volleyball all through high school. So we won BC Provincials my junior year, so when we were grade 10s, and had strong senior teams as well. So I had always played volleyball, beach volleyball, throughout high school, and then of course basketball. So basketball was always my love. It was always between basketball and volleyball. And I did my best to kind of keep playing all sports. I did club track and field, club volleyball, played basketball BC, played high school basketball, played high school volleyball, high school track, and then inevitably when I hit about my grade 11 year, that's kind of when I had to prioritize which sport I was going to focus on in terms of thinking about post-secondary. It's tough to kind of pick and choose, but it was always basketball and volleyball for me, and they were able to coexist for the most part. But when it came to my grade 11 year, I had to decide, am I going to play post-secondary for basketball or volleyball? So at that point, I stopped playing club volleyball and decided to focus on basketball. I still played high school volleyball, but made the decision that basketball was my priority. And so I think the biggest thing with multi-sport, if you're able to work it in your schedule, you learn so many different skills and movements from all the different sports. So like I said, as a track athlete, I was only responsible for myself. So if I made a mistake, it was on me. I couldn't blame anyone else. In volleyball, no one can really take over the game. So you're really dependent on your teammates. You can't touch the ball all 3 times. So you have to kind of have that trust with your teammates. And in basketball at the high school level, sometimes you can take over. And so it was kind of an interesting way to learn how to, play a team sport, how to be responsible for self, and to really understand where to give ownership.
Yeah, translate that, working with others, teamwork, all that stuff. Translate that towards, we're kind of like the Jordan documentary. We're going back and forth. So I'm going to take that. Tell us how that translates now into your actual life. Like how has that had a positive impact on how you're actually doing things?
Yeah, I think it's really important to recognize what your role is on the team. I think that can be really challenging because I think naturally as basketball players, you want to score. And, there's a lot of glory in scoring and the announcer announcing your name and looking at the stat sheet. But I think what young athletes really need to realize that if you can find your role within the team, whether that's the defender or the rebounder or the person that hustles the most, coaches really see that aspect, and it really shows the buy-in to pulling the team together to win. So in terms of translating to real life, that now that I'm no longer an athlete, I think it's really important because you start to see the strengths of your coworkers around you, and you want to lift those strengths up so they make you stronger as a team. So I think that recognizing your strength and your role, even though you maybe want to be the scorer, recognize, hey, you know what? I'm actually the best rebounder. And if I get all the rebounds, I'm going to help my team. So I think that would kind of be the way I would translate it.
Yeah, totally. And so when did you start thinking about playing, you said earlier in grade 11, you started thinking, you wanted to be a basketball player at the next level. What type of work did you put in to make that happen? Did you say, okay, I'm going to start putting more time in the gym. I'm going to start emailing coaches. I'm going to start, what type of focus, what took you to the next level to actually get to where you ended up going, which is obviously that Huskies chair you got in the background there.
Go Dogs. Yeah. It's really interesting. I think things have changed so much since I've played. I'm 35 years old out now, and really when recruiting was going on back when I was in high school, I wasn't really aware of it. I think there was there wasn't a ton of Canadians that had gone down to the United States, and I think my mantra has always kind of been, they'll find you if you're good enough. And so I was being recruited by a bunch of youth sport coaches because I was playing locally. And then every summer, I think I went to one tournament just down into Washington State. And that one tournament got me kind of all the exposure I needed. And the recruiting process was fast and furious. It was completely overwhelming. It was a new landscape because, Kim Smith was someone who I looked up to when I was playing. She's 2 or 3 years older than me. And I remember when she was being recruited, I was going through that same type of process. And I think the biggest thing with recruiting is, one, you have to understand where the location of the school is. So are you ready to live across the country for 4 or 5 years or live in another country for 4 or 5 years? What do you want to do post-secondary? At the time, I wanted to be a reporter. So it was really important for me to find if the university had a journalism school. So you want to make sure they have something that may be of interest. And I think the other thing was I wanted to play. I didn't want to go down to the US to sit on the bench or to transfer home. I was either going to stay in Canada and play, or I was going to go down to the States and make a name for myself. So when I came down to kind of my final four, I saw that the UW had 4 forwards that were graduating my year. So I knew the chances were coming in as a freshman, I would get some playing time. So I think the biggest thing is that I did a bunch of research. I got to know the coaches, but in the US, coaches are hired and fired all the time. So for me, being close to home, good academics, playing in a big conference and getting playing time were kind of my deciding factors. And after doing all the research, the UW was the best fit for me. So that's how it worked out.
So tell us about that experience. So you end up going down there. Like you said, you started playing right away as a freshman. What was that like? What were some of the adversity that we went through? And then what was like the best part? So give us the lows and then give us the best.
Yeah, I think I don't think you're really ready for university basketball. You think you are. You put all this time in the gym and you work on your shot and you've got all this confidence. You're the best player to come out of your high school or your province. You're like, yeah, no problem. I'm going to play. The reality is, no matter what, the transition is hard. The girls are bigger, they're faster, they're stronger. Doesn't matter whether it's U Sports or NCAA. It's a huge jump. So I think the transition was really difficult. I worked hard. I started as a freshman and kind of never let go of that position. And that's because I spent time in the gym. And I talk about being a role player. I wasn't a scorer there. They told me I needed to rebound and piss off the other player on the team we were playing. So, I can remember playing Stanford and I guarded Nicole Powell. I remember playing LSU, I guarded Simone Augustus. So my role was really to get them upset, to get them into foul trouble, to maybe get a technical from them. And I bought into that. And that's why I got playing time. It wasn't because I was the best scorer or the best shooter or not even close to the best athlete. It was just, I knew what my role was and I didn't give it up. So that was kind of how I earned my playing time. In terms of lows, thankfully I never had any major injury, but I dislocated both my shoulders right before the NCAA tournament both years. So our first time we went to the NCAA tournament, I dislocated my left shoulder the game before we went. So I had to get a little bit of a shot in that so I could play. And sure enough, my senior year, I dislocated my right shoulder. I took a charge. My shoulder popped out in the Pac-10 tournament. They put it back in and I played. So in terms of lows, playing through injury, which now at my age maybe wasn't the best decision. But the highs, I think it's just the experience. Like I couldn't even tell you about, a win or a loss or there was a lot of them over the years, but I just remember, I don't know, that camaraderie feeling and I bleed purple and gold now. Like I'm a Husky for life. I mean, you see it on my chair. You can't see my house, but there's University of Washington stuff everywhere. And it's just kind of that connection and passion and loyalty I ended up having with the university and my friends down there.
Yeah, for sure. Tell us about some of that camaraderie. Like, are you talk to a lot of people that you went to school with? Who are your coaches? How did that relationship go? Kind of give us a little bit of breakdown on like the relationships that you built while you were there.
Yeah, I mean, some of my best friends from the University of Washington were actually on the volleyball team. So to this day, one of my best friends, she's a 2-time Olympic medalist in volleyball. They won the national championship when I was there, and we're still really good friends. We do a 300-kilometer bike ride every summer. However, this summer might not happen. But so we've just maintained, really good friendship and connection. I mean, thankfully, Seattle's only 2.5 hours away. So I was fortunate in the sense that I still do see a lot of my friends. And two of my basketball teammates are my girls. I was, bridesmaids in their wedding. It's just, you connect with certain people. Like I lived with a bunch of girls that also didn't play any sports. So, I made lifelong friendship, and anywhere you go, you're going to meet those connections. I think right now in high school, you're like, oh, these are my best friends. But when you go to post-secondary, like you really meet such a wide variety of people in a brand new group from really all over the country, all over the world.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things you'd mentioned earlier that I thought was, really cool. And, you're watching the Last Dance stuff and you see, Dennis Rodman getting so much attention and stuff is, he was a 20-point scorer when he was in college, and then he goes to the pros and he's not even trying to shoot. And one of the big shots he hit, the reason he hit it is because no one even thought he was ever going to shoot it. But he dominated his role, right? And so for everybody on our team, if we ever do get to play, you can all score, you can all do all that, whatever. But on a team that matters, on a team that can actually play, what other roles can you do? Are you the person who dives on the loose ball? Are you the one who creates energy in the group? Are you going to go rebound? So it's kind of nice that you pointed that out, because it makes a big difference, especially on a top level team like what we're trying to do here. Now, so you graduate. Then what you do right after you graduated?
So after I graduated, I went and played professionally overseas for 4 years. So I played in Europe. I played in Spain, Portugal, Finland, Sweden, Luxembourg. So I kind of, I did the rotation overseas because I wasn't ready to give up basketball yet. at that time, WNBA was really new. Not to say that I would have made it. I think there was like 10 teams at the time. And so I knew because I wasn't going to make the WNBA, I wanted to keep playing. I wanted to play at the highest level I could. And I think that's the biggest message I'd give to you girls is you always want to challenge yourself to play against the best competition, to compete. Go play one-on-one with a boy. Who cares if he beats you? He's going to make you better. So after graduation, 4 years overseas, decided to hang it up after those 4 years because I wanted to get into my career. And I knew I wanted to get into athletics, and my networking had kind of, helped me along the way. And so built a good network, wanted to stay in sport, and kind of has led me to where I am today.
Okay, so that's one of the things we've talked about with a lot of the players that we've interviewed and the coaches. Talk about that network. You put together a network. How'd that happen? Tell us, who helped you get to the spot that you're at right now? What give us a little breakdown of that, because I think that's the most important. Personally, as somebody who, obviously didn't finish at university, but I see we've had a lot of players go through, and the number one thing that I see when they go through is who are they networking with, and that kind of changes who they are and who they end up becoming, and what type of positions they end up getting in the future. And we see that at our office as well with our work. A lot of the people are through another contact. We've got somebody who's connected to somebody else. And a lot of people have gotten really high, to their jobs that they are right now through that network. So kind of give us a little breakdown of that network you were referring to there.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I would say is relationships matter, and how you make someone feel, they're going to remember that. And so I just remember when I was going to university, I used to thank the score table and the ushers every time I left the gym. Whether that was my parents ingraining that in me or, it was just part of my routine. I don't even know, like I was so young at the time, but I always said thank you. And then I interned in our sports information office during the summer because I wanted to see what they did behind the scenes to make us athletes these like celebrities on campus. So I think I was more curious than anything. And at the time, I didn't realize I was developing relationships. I'm a super outgoing person who anyone knows me, I'm very extroverted. And so I love meeting a stranger. And I know that can be uncomfortable for people, but networking is really just, going up and talking to someone, getting to know something about them. And so it all comes full circle because when I was applying for my first role at UBC, I actually reached out to one of the associate directors at the University of Washington. And I said, I'm going in for this interview and it's in the athletic department and you probably don't remember me. And they were like, I remember you. You said hello every time you walked down the hallway. Breanne, of course I remember you. I'm never going to forget you. And, I had graduated 5 years. There's about 600 athletes that go through the UW every single year. Like you just think you're a piece of meat sort of thing. But somehow I had made an impression with that person and they're like, I'll be your reference. I'll prepare you for the interview. This is what you need to say. This is what you need to do. And slowly I developed this great network that started at the University of Washington. A lot of those people went on to different universities all over the NCAA and continue to develop my network to where I am now. It's very advantageous working in the NCAA, having been an NCAA athlete and now having colleagues all across the country. So I think the biggest thing is just really remember how you make someone feel. And if you don't make them feel good, that's probably not a good thing because in the future, you might need to ask them for a favor and you want to make sure you have a good relationship there. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So you went from UBC and then you ended up getting the job at Simon. Tell us a little bit about that, working with Teresa and how much you learned and how great it is to work with her.
Yeah, I started at UBC. I was there for 4 years in the athletic department as the event manager. Kind of my first real job. Loved it. Loved my time at UBC. Got a lot of love for UBC. Then I actually worked in professional sports for 2 years and dealt with like big professional contracts and whatnot because I thought working with the NBA and the NHL and the MLS was like the dream role. But what I actually realized during that time was I had a love for amateur sport because I think there's a lot more passion in amateur sport because you're always trying to make that next level. Not to say there isn't passion in professional sport, but being paid a lot of money to perform. So recognized I really wanted to get back to university sport, was, looking for positions all across Canada, had actually applied for a bunch of similar roles in youth sports. And the position at SFU had just been posted as well. I couldn't believe my luck. And so applied for that, went through the whole process, and really was the best fit for me just because I'm well-versed in the NCAA. And so I can speak that language a lot better than the youth sports language. And it worked out. I've been there, it'll be 3 years in September. It's gone by really quickly. It's been fast and furious, but I got a lot of love for youth sports, and I got a lot of love for the NCAA. I think I've been very fortunate to be able to see what post-secondary sports is both in Canada and the US.
So when you look back at your high school experience and you put yourself back in the shoes of these kids that we're talking to right now, what is like one or two of the tips that if you could go back, you would maybe fine tune a few things, or some of the things you thought were really important when you were back that age?
Yeah, I think retrospect is something that's really interesting. I think if I was to go back, I think the biggest thing I would think about is to make sure I was playing for me. I think a lot of times there's a lot of noise, whether it be your parents or your friends or your family or teammates who are telling you what you should do, where you should play, where you should go. But I think you really need to look within yourself, like, what do I want to do? Do I want to go away from home? Do I want to stay close to home? Do I want to stay in Canada? Do I want to go to the US? I think you need to ask yourself that question first. And I think the other thing would be to slow down and enjoy it, because it goes by so fast. And honestly, I can say those were the best 4 years of my life. I think I got in a really good situation. I think that was a lot to do with the research I did prior to coming into the school, but you'll know the right fit. And if you get the right fit, it goes by like that. And I'd do anything to be a university athlete again. So just enjoy the ride and enjoy high school too. It goes by so quickly. And if you had the chance to go to provincials this year, I know a lot of you were probably playing. I watched most of your games, I'm sure. But really enjoy it. Don't fast forward through anything.
That's fantastic advice. Now, we had somebody ask a question of one of the people we were interviewing the other day, and I'm going to ask the same question to you. Do you have a pregame routine when you were playing? Like, what did you do leading up to a game to get yourself mentally and physically ready for a game?
I would get super nervous. I'm a bundle of nerves before a game because I'm so fired up. And honestly, I'd get on the court really early. So 2 hours before tip off, just to get some shots off and sort of get comfortable with the space and calm my nerves. And then, I just go in the locker room and kind of hang out with the team, listen to some music. And really, I was so amped up until that ball was tipped. I didn't calm down. So superstition, nothing really. Tape my ankles, wear my mouth guard, make sure I'm ready to go. That's probably it. I think I straightened my hair a little bit and maybe put on some makeup, but I don't know. That was University Breanne Watson, so it was a while ago.
You didn't overdo it though. You just put a little bit of makeup on. Now last thing, one of the things that I think is a big deal is getting ready for your freshman year. We haven't really talked about it with the kids much, but I think one of the big issues that a lot of athletes have is, through their entire high school experience in the summer, they have something set that they're doing. And then when they go, they're finished their grade 12 year, they don't really have anything set, and it's kind of on their own. What would be one or two things that you think when a kid goes to university before they show up, things that have to happen before they get there?
Ooh, it's a really good question. I always think it's good to get to know your other incoming freshmen. So whether you're connecting through email or WhatsApp or I guess Instagram or Snapchat, whatever you guys do these days, just make sure you're connecting so you have a bit of foundation. I know before I went to the UW, I actually had called a couple people from BC. So there was Carly Halpenny, who had played at the University of Washington. There was also a couple rowers that were from Victoria. I remember calling them out of the phone book. I mean, I'm aging myself right now, but I remember just cold calling them and just saying, what was it like? How do I get ready? And you know what? You're not ready. You show up and it's scary. But it'll all work out. But I think trying to connect with incoming freshmen, if you have that, helps a little bit.
Well, you know what? I think naturally you probably you don't really understand the preparation that you put through, because what you just said is actually a very detailed answer. You actually went out of your way. You found some people, you got out of your comfort zone, you found some people to call, you cold called them. That's not something a 17-year-old girl does very often, so that's a big deal. Getting some information before you go, kind of asking around some questions. Very good stuff. Thank you so much for joining us, Bree. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
Girls, let's give her a round of applause.